Looking to find out what's happening on the NDSU campus? Watch Bison Information Network News every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on Cable 1 Channel 70. This student-run weekly newscast covers relevant news and current events, entertainment, Bison sports, and more. Watch BIN News Fridays at 9 p.m., Saturdays at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., and Sundays at 9 a.m. on Cable 1 Channel 70.
Bison Information Network News is brought to you in partnership with Cable 1.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of X's and O's. I'm Joe Thompson.
And I'm Isak Dinesen.
And we have a lot to cover today. Later on the show, we're going to be discussing some very exciting news for NDSU football, a brand new football league, and the NBA trade deadline. But first, we're going to discuss the rise of NDSU men's basketball this season. They're currently on a 4-game winning streak. Isak, what do you make of this streak so far?
You know, I like what I'm seeing, and just the fact that this is a team that, wasn't really given much of a chance in the non-conference slate. They had their ups and downs in the non-conference slate. They played some difficult teams like Gonzaga and Iowa State that are nationally ranked and having to endure some growing pains. But nonetheless, they've managed to, without really any, they have 0 seniors on their roster, and they're managing to just pretty much play within themselves. They're not really, and they're just kind of winning these close games right now. And it's a nice testament to see them doing that after a few years of kind of struggling a little bit in the Summit League. Yeah.
One of the biggest surprises, I think, is the rise of Vinnie Shahid. He's been tearing it up in these last 4 games. He's really finally come out of his shell, I think. What do you think of Vinnie Shahid during this streak? Because he's been killing it.
Well, he had a game that was impressive for like a star NBA guard, and he's doing it in a 40-minute college game. He had recently had a game that he had 27 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. That's a pretty good stat line. That's a Russell Westbrook-like stat line, and just the fact that, now defenses are starting to, see what he's all about. He's a junior. He's risen through the depth chart. He's kind of risen up through the rotation over the years, and now he's getting his opportunity to really make his imprint on the Bison offense. And just right now it seems like he's the number one focus instead of what we might have thought earlier in the year could have been Tyson Ward being the type of player that he is out on the wing. But right now they're going to number 0 in green and gold quite a bit.
Yeah. It's not just Vinnie Shahid, though. The whole team seems to be coming together as a whole. Like you said, Tyson Ward, he's still doing his thing. Rocky Cruiser has been stepping up huge. Dangu is great off the bench. They have a true freshman starting in the starting lineup. The game I went to on Saturday, he played 39 minutes. Mm-hmm. He never left the floor.
It's a freshman from Nebraska. Better look out for him in the future. Number 5, Sam Griesel.
Insane. But back real quick, do you think the Bison can keep this streak going, or do you think they are getting hot a little bit too soon?
The next stretch of games that the Bison men play, they're all at home. They just played a home game last Saturday against Denver, and now they got 3 more in a row at home, and they're all pretty important teams that they're playing against. The next time they play at home is on Thursday. We won't be able to cover it. We have a newscast that day, but they're playing. I think they're playing against. I think it's Purdue Fort Wayne. I might be wrong on that, but they're. I know for certain they're playing against South Dakota State next Saturday at home, and then the week after that they got another home game as well to close out their home schedule. They have, and all these games are against teams that are either right above them. They're currently 4th in the Summit League standings right now. All these games that they have at home coming up are within 1 or 2 spots, or in South Dakota State's case, they're playing the top of the conference coming up. So all these games are going to be very critical for seeding in the tournament.
Yeah. Do you think that if the Bison continue to win, they can get a rise in not just the fans who come to the games, but the students?
Students like winning, although that theory has been kind of disproved by NDSU football's recent success. If you've seen the lack of student tickets that has been given to the students in football, but and of course football is obviously going to be pretty much always king here, and it's pretty cold outside for students to be able to go to games, especially those that are underclassmen and living in dorms, and but I think if you have enough enough reasons to want to go, winning being one of them, but also games being exciting to go to, like not just seeing a winning team, but also having a fun atmosphere to go to. That's what the team right now is trying to build, and it's definitely a process. We're also seeing that with the women's team. It's kind of been a little bit more of a struggle in their sense, but still, you got to be able to not only win but also create a good atmosphere to want to be at.
I think one of the biggest things that NDSU men's basketball has going for them, if they continue to win to try and get more students into the seats, is that it's something new. NDSU students are used to the Bison football team only going like 11-1, 12-0, 10-2 for 8 years at this point.
And not very
7
many
national championships.
And not very many students around here were around here the last time the team went to the tournament in 2014.
Yeah.
They beat Oklahoma in the first round of the tournament in 2014, and all those guys from that team are now all gone. So it kind of lends itself, hey, if you can continue to get some traction with this current group, being that there aren't any seniors this year. If you can't get there this year, maybe next year's the year that maybe they make a run and generate some more fan interest.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But just based on the fact that it's something new and exciting, oh, hey, our basketball team has kind of fell off in the last few years, but now they're starting to pick up the pace a little bit. Let's see if they keep winning, we're going to want to go to more games. And if by some miracle we take out South Dakota State in the Summit League tournament and make the NCAA tournament,
Anything can happen in March.
Anything can happen in March.
Anything can happen in
But
March.
I think it's going to be huge for the Bison if they can make some noise in the Summit League tournament this year and make it to the quarter or semifinal and really try and get the students and the fans more notice that NDSU is not just a football school. They can make some noise in the world of basketball too.
Sure thing. And I almost wish I knew what the national, the conference pundits picked, where they picked NDSU to be this year, because I mean they are their record does say that they're a little over 500 overall, but that's largely because of their non-conference schedule. They have to play some difficult teams pretty much every year in the non-conference portion of their season, but just the fact that they're having as much success as they are might lend me to believe that maybe some other people in the Summit League may not have predicted them to be all that great this season.
I think I would have to agree with you there. Nobody really expects much out of the Bison basketball team nowadays. It's not the same team that beat Oklahoma in the NCAA tournament a few years ago, but it's starting to get more exciting again with this winning streak, I feel like. And when I went to the game on Saturday, there were some students there, but the seats in the stadium were more filled up than what I've seen at previous men's games. So it's pretty exciting to see fans starting to take notice of the team. But really, do you think if they do make the NCAA tournament this year, do you think it's going to be like your typical first round exit, or do you think they could make some noise?
If they make the tournament this year, that would mean they'd have to run the table in the Summit League tournament, because with as many losses that they have right now, they can't get an at-large bid. You'd have to be pretty much Gonzaga level and you also end up losing your conference tournament to be able to get in at this level, being a mid-major in Division I. So essentially, if that happens, that's wonderful if you get to the tournament. I'm not expecting it, largely because of how difficult it is, but it would be magnificent for the program, and it would create a lot of momentum into next year. But I just don't, I don't think I'm seeing it happen realistically right now.
Being realistic, it's likely not going to happen. But I do think they can make some noise when it comes to the Summit League tournament. But how much do you think this could impact Dave Richmond? How much has he impacted the team this season? Because they've struggled a little bit since he took over, since the previous coach left.
I actually don't know too much of a life of NDSU basketball without him there. He's been around as long as we've both been here. I don't actually really have much of a educated opinion, but certainly you can't discount coaching, especially when there's a team like this that, there's just a lot of juniors, no seniors that have been around for 4 years, and a few transfers along the way that have not even been with the program for really more than 2 years, more often than not on this team. But you definitely can't discount coaching on a team like this. The way that they're playing right now, they're believing in themselves, and you'd have to think that Dave Richmond's a big part of that.
Yeah, And on top of this, with the success the Bison have had, and they continue to have success both in the continuing on the regular season and possibly into the Summit League, how do you think this will help with recruitment to get more, obviously not high-end talent because NDSU is mid-major, but some pretty decent talent coming in for like recruitment and stuff?
And I mean, I think they've been doing a pretty good job recently. And just continuing to win can only help, your prospects in getting better talent from the upper Midwest here in North Dakota and Minnesota. They got a few, I remember when they signed Rocky Cruiser, he went to Totino Grace. He's from Minnesota. Totino Grace is traditionally more of a football powerhouse in Minnesota. They also got Vinnie Shahid, who used to go to Hopkins basketball school down there in Minnesota. But, you got to be able to, in recruiting, you have to be able to not only just pick the most talented players, but the right guys that can buy into your system. And really, as well, with the most recent recruits like Jarius Cook, who hasn't gotten much playing time this season, new transfer Jordan Horn. They're all like guys that are from the area. They're not really overextending their boundaries in recruiting. And I think the future is going to be looking bright. And just like I mentioned earlier, as long as you continue to win, more guys are going to be looking your way in recruiting.
Well, I don't really have much else to say about NDSU men's basketball, but we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss a lot of more football and then the recent trades in the NBA trade deadline.
Conveniently located across the street from NDSU's campus, Herd and Horns is the place to go, whether you're looking for a fantastic meal or just a quick bite to eat.
Hi, welcome to Herd and Horns. Are you from the drink right away?
With friendly staff and excellent service, it's a restaurant for all ages. Herd and Horns, your home for great food and Bison sports. Welcome to Bison Block. If you are an NDSU student, you know it well. It's located right across the street from campus. How would you like to live in the same building as Starbucks, Jimmy John's, and Herd and Horns? Bison Block offers high-quality apartments at a very affordable price. For more information, go to our website at bisonblockfargo.com to apply today.
Welcome back to X's and O's. We're going to shift gears back to football. As you may have heard, as of this Saturday, NDSU has received an official invite to the White House to celebrate their 7 national championships in 8 years.
Big accomplishment.
I think when you look at this, regardless of what your political views are, whatever you think of the president at the current time, this is huge. I mean, you got to look at it like when the last time an FCS team was invited to the White House, it was Youngstown State in the 90s when they won 4 national championships in the 90s. They got invited in 1995. It's the first time in well over 20 years that an FCS football team has been invited to the White House. That's got to be huge for not just the team, but for the city of Fargo in general.
It means you've been doing something pretty special, I'd say, if you ever get invited to the White House. I don't think anybody, obviously now no one else in FCS history has done what NDSU's done over this decade, winning 7 titles in 8 years. Georgia Southern won 6 and 7, I'm pretty sure. Is that right? I know they did. NDSU did usurp Georgia Southern for 6 titles.
A while ago, they won 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm. whatever the situation may have been with Georgia Southern, they now have the most titles in FCS history. That's still a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Do you think, I know Coach Kleiman, he's gone, he's got K-State now, he's going to be super busy with K-State stuff, but do you think it would be really cool to have him there with the team, since he was the head coach of this team?
It would make sense. I mean, if possible, if they can get the entire, band back together for this moment, that'd be nice, considering, this is a thing that Kleiman inherited, and the only hiccup he had was in 2016, losing to James Madison in heartbreaking fashion. But it was his project. He recruited all those players that ended up winning all these titles, especially recently in 17 and 18 now. But it'd be nice to get him back, I think.
With the success that NDSU has in being invited to the White House, do you think this will ever be replicated? Will an FCS team ever be invited to the White House after this?
You got to be doing. You got to be doing something pretty extraordinary to get DC's attention. It's so hard to really properly say, because these things don't happen organically. Now, I am on record of saying that it isn't impossible for something like this to happen again, and I still stand by that, but that doesn't mean that I don't think it's incredibly unlikely to have so much success, not only throughout as much a period of time as this, but also have your efforts be recognized with a trip to Washington, D.C. That's very hard to do, because considering the scope of the FCS is not very great, there's a lot of it's not as wide of an appeal, obviously, because it's the lower division of Division I. In terms of football, it's not obviously getting as much attention as your higher Division I's, your Big Tens, your SECs, and whatnot.
But yeah, we're going to shift gears here. There's a new football league that I wasn't even fully aware of until this past Saturday. The Alliance.
The Alliance of American Football.
The AAF. There's 8 teams so far?
There are 8 teams, and there are 4 Western teams and 4 Eastern teams. And, and it goes as far west as San Diego and as far east as Orlando, Florida.
So what do you really think of the league so far, now that they've played their first few games?
So yeah, they just played their first 4 games over the weekend. I think it's an interesting experiment, considering that all the players on these rosters are fringe kind of practice squad level NFL
former
players.
NFL players.
Yep, and that may have been that are either currently practice squad players or have been let go by previous NFL teams for being not up to standards when they were drafted. For instance, Trent Richardson, he's a member of the Birmingham Iron. He's their nice one there. He's their starting running back, former Alabama standout. Didn't pan out in the NFL. Now he's getting a second chance. This is going to be not really much as it's not going to be like what the XFL was trying to do in the early 2000s and 2001 to try to be an alternative to the NFL. I kind of think that the AAF is going to be a feeder league to the NFL. It's going to give guys that, like Richardson and Quentin Patton, also on Birmingham, and also David Cobb, he's on San Antonio, former Minnesota Golden Gopher, guys that didn't pan out in the NFL. If they perform well here, NFL teams are going to be knocking on their doors and calling them up, trying to possibly give them invites to training camp, because this is a spring league. It runs until April, and the championship round is right around NFL draft time. So that gives the teams that may get signed from the championship team to get invited to mini camps and participate in summer activities with the team. But no, I think it's going to be more just of like a feeder league to the NFL rather than direct competition. Speaking
of the XFL, they are making a return trip in 2020. Do you think the AAF is going to affect that in some way?
It's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out, because I don't remember exactly what Vince McMahon, who's the head of the revitalized version of the XFL yet again, what his pitch was to football fans on what kind of brand of football they're planning to give. But with the AAF making the rule differentiations that they are from the NFL, it'll be interesting to see what the XFL ends up doing. Among the things that I want to actually touch on this a little bit, with some of the things that the AAF is doing differently than normal football that we're used to, there aren't any kickoffs, which I think is fair, because most kickoffs end in touchbacks, and they're subject to a lot of penalties.
Very rarely do you get return touchdowns.
Yep, and you're seeing much less and less of that. You're also trying to cut down on player injuries on kickoffs. There are no extra points after touchdowns. You have to go for 2 every time you score a touchdown.
I kind of like that.
Which is not a bad rule. You know, it gives a lot more. It creates a lot more strategy in your play calling in those short yardage situations that aren't just used around the goal line. There's also a situation where there are no more onside kicks anymore, and if a team's down with under 5 minutes to go, or if they're down by 17 points or more in the fourth quarter, they can, after a touchdown, they can get the ball back at their own 28-yard line and try a 4th and 12 to keep trying to score, which is a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
I kind of think that the NFL should adapt this rule, because imagine Aaron Rodgers in that situation. You give him one play on a 4th and 12 to get 12 yards and continue a comeback instead of just relying on the bounce of a football, on a little squib of a football and an onside kick. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to get that, or Tom Brady, any of these good quarterbacks might be able to find a way to get those conversions more often than not. I think the NFL should be considering, adopting that rule.
Do you think they should adopt any of the other rules, or is just that one?
You know, and time will tell how effective they are. They also have a 9th official that's what's I think referred to as a sky cam official, or whatever the deal is. There's an official that sits up in the press box and can notify the other officials on the field that they made a penalty error. They called a penalty incorrectly, and that judge has the discretion to reverse the penalty if they think it's egregious enough to be able to overturn.
And I think one of the other key things that you have to look at with the AAF in comparison to the NFL is that it's way more physical now than the NFL now. I remember the first thing I saw of the AAF was the quarterback for the San Diego AAF team get absolutely lit up by an opposing player. His helmet flew off.
Yep, which is I think in the NFL, if any helmet flies off, the play is immediately dead.
Yeah, and not only that, it would have been roughing the passer, would have been a player fine and/or suspension, and a new rule added for safety.
It's kind of interesting how the new league treats that kind of play.
It's real interesting. But we're going to just wrap this up real quick before we move on to the NBA trade deadline. We talked a little bit about it before the show, but do you have an AAF team that you're going to support? Because I know I have one.
And you mentioned it a little bit ago. I haven't had an opportunity to. I only looked at truth be told, I haven't seen the full games of these teams yet. I just watched the highlights. But I don't know. I'm kind of liking San Antonio just because of the fact that they play in such an electric atmosphere in the Alamo Dome down there, which only is used for UTSA football, the former home of the San Antonio Spurs. They had a lot of people in that lower bowl down there. It seemed like they did really well attendance-wise, and they won their first game in a pretty what ended up being a little bit of a wider margin at the end of that game.
Yeah.
But and we don't really know a whole lot about the identity of these teams yet. But right now, I think San Antonio might be my team for the time being right now.
I think with me, I'm fully committed to the Birmingham Iron. They look dominant. Their quarterback looked great, Trenton Richardson. Although he didn't have a lot of yards, he's had 2 touchdowns in that game. They had the first ever shutout in AAF history. I think for John, you gotta ride the coattails of Trent Richardson and the Birmingham Iron. And I think they're going to be one of the teams to beat come championship game.
Very limited sample size.
Very limited. So, but I'm just going to run with them. We're going to run with them till the AAF is no longer a thing. Which who knows how long it's going to last. But
right.
We'll see what happens.
There's a lot of viewership week 1, but that isn't guaranteed long-term success.
more with like the XFL stuff. And there was a
But
lot
that
of viewership because it's a new thing and people
Yep.
wanted to see what it was.
Just depends on how good the football is. It'll
Yeah.
make viewers keep coming back.
But real quick, we're going to briefly go over the NBA trade deadline that happened a week or so ago. Wasn't too many blockbuster trades, really. Anthony Davis, he was not
didn't
traded.
get traded.
He did not get traded. He's still in the Pelicans. He's not going to play in. He's not going to play in as many minutes as he did previously. They probably significantly cut his minutes because he just wants to move on from the team. And I think the team is, although they don't really want to move on from him, they're going to comply to his wishes and try to get him.
Which is fair. I think it's
and
the right
ready
decision.
To go. But for me, the most interesting trade that I saw during the trade deadline was the Toronto Raptors trading Jonas Valanciunas and I think some other like picks and maybe another player to the Grizzlies for Marc Gasol.
Yep.
I thought that was a pretty interesting trade because although Marc Gasol is significantly older than Jonas Valanciunas, as we talked a little bit before the show, that Marc Gasol has better like spacing. He can pass the ball. He's multiple-time All-Star. He's one of the great centers of today. So it's really interesting to see that the Raptors are finally going into win-now mode with Kyle Lowry, Kawhi Leonard, and now Marc Gasol.
And now with the addition of Gasol, it is a win-now move, and it's largely and I like this move for them because like of just what you said. It's the modern NBA now. Everybody's got to be able to shoot the ball, which Marc Gasol has developed a three-point shot at this point in his career. And he's also been consistently one of the best passing big men in the NBA for quite some time now.
Yeah.
You know who else has a really good shooting and passing big man in the NBA? The Golden State Warriors, DeMarcus Cousins.
DeMarcus Cousins, he's finally back.
You got to be able to match up with them if you want to be able to contend for a championship. And Toronto's at least got to give them credit. They also have plenty of other young players that they didn't give up in this trade that they're holding on to that come off their bench. Toronto's got one of the best second units in the league, and now they also get another guy that's been to the playoffs before. He's a gritty type player. I think they're gonna continue to propel. They're going to continue to propel their record into the playoffs and maybe beyond. But Milwaukee also made some deals, made some moves at the deadline. Philadelphia was also very active at the trade deadline. The Eastern Conference is going to be an interesting fight to the finish, I'd say.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you that. I think with LeBron gone from the Eastern Conference, it's a straight-up dogfight to who's going to get to the NBA Finals between the Bucks, the Raptors, the Celtics, the 76ers, and kind of still the Pacers, even though they don't have Victor Oladipo.
Right,
they're still winning.
right,
They're still winning games. They're still got loads of talent on that team.
And who knows, maybe they can win a playoff series. Anything
which
can
would be
happen,
cool.
it seems like right now in the NBA. But
The way I see it, the team that's going to go into the Eastern Conference is just going to the NBA Finals just to lose to the Warriors because nobody's going to beat the Warriors anytime soon.
Which
They're
is
gonna
so
have,
sad. But
it's sad, but it's still kind of impressive that the Warriors can keep adding superstar after superstar after superstar.
I don't think this is going to continue, however. I think DeMarcus Cousins is going to leave, and they also have to pay.
He only signed the one-year deal for a reason.
Correct. Well, they could only sign the mid-level exception to him, but I think also Klay Thompson could be considering leaving, and they also have to consider Kevin Durant could be leaving as well.
Kevin Durant talked a lot about wanting to move.
Because he's got to repair his legacy, with the way that he left Oklahoma City just to ring chase, and now I would think it'd be the best move for him to try to be the leader of his own team again.
Kind of pull what LeBron did. Like LeBron left Cleveland for Miami. He was globally hated for that move.
Yes.
Because he was straight up just chasing rings. He got 2 rings, and then he went back to Cleveland and won them a ring, which was pretty cool. I don't see Kevin Durant going back to Oklahoma City. No way.
They already have Paul George. They already have Russell Westbrook.
Steven Adams.
They already have those 2 guys eating up a lot of their cap.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't think Kevin Durant's going back to Oklahoma City at all. But where do you see? Do you have maybe a not really educated guess, but do you have a guess of where Kevin Durant might go off in free agency?
I'm going off what I said when we first introduced the Kristaps Porzingis trade. I gotta think he's going to the Knicks. They got all this. They got all the cap space that they freed up by trading, making that Porzingis trade, and They also have room for another superstar level player, and if they continue to lose, they'll get Zion Williamson, Cam Reddish, R.J. Barrett, any of those Duke players that seem to be all getting mocked 1, 2, 3 right now in very early NBA draft, NBA draft mocks. But you can't discount the Knicks, but the LA Clippers also have been making a lot of space. They did when they traded Tobias Harris, they kind of just got ready. They're basically saying, we're getting ready for the summer. We're going to try to make our pitches toward Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and all those other guys. Mm-hmm.
I do kind of have to agree with you on the Knicks, but I always have to be wary because the Knicks have to be smart about this. They are notorious for making really bad moves. I think they've always been about getting names instead of players that fit their scheme.
Well, now in this situation, if you get Kevin Durant, just run the scheme around him.
But they might also have enough cap space to get Kyrie Irving and then build through the draft and sign other key players in free agency that can be pretty cheap.
You'd have to think that they've learned from getting players like Carmelo Anthony that just didn't fit what Phil Jackson wanted the Knicks to run, and also getting Amari Stoudemire that didn't work out. That was largely because of injury as well.
Yeah. When they got Amari Stoudemire, he was still a top level player, but once he got to the Knicks, it was just a slow, steady decline.
Make the Knicks great again, guys.
Bring it back to 1994 when they made the NBA Finals with Patrick Ewing, John Starks, Charles Oakley. Just that whole Knicks team was just amazing. Not that we were alive to see it, but I've seen highlights and it was pretty insane. But that's going to do it for us on this week's edition of X's and O's. I'm Joe Thompson.
I'm Isaac Deason. Hope you like our new logo, by the way.
We have a new logo. Our very own logo, and we'll see you next time.